Tonight, the stakes are high. Rising poverty and hunger, a middle belt under siege, political chess games heading into 2027, and a president collecting endorsements like souvenirs and decampees by the week. What does this mean for us as Nigerians? I'm Hadiza Manofashi. Welcome to The Pap Show. This is a platform where we challenge authority, question intentions, and shine the spotlight on those who shape, shock, or sabotage Nigeria's democratic journey. Sitting with us tonight, a man with a red beret, no filter, and who has said President Bola Ahmed Tinubu remains the only Nigerian leader who has drawn a clear battle line between himself and the masses by weaponizing hunger, poverty, and hardship. Former Minister of Youth and Sports under former President Muhammad Buhari, a northern voice in the middle of a political storm. I will introduce our guest right after this break. Welcome back to the Pap Show. Thank you for joining us, Honorable Solomon Dalung. It is quite an honor to meet you.
It's a pleasure to be with you here on Pap.
Thank you. Let's dive right in. There are whispers of a northern coalition gearing up to challenge Tinubu in 2027. You've been vocal, you've been visible. Are you part of this quiet storm?
Well, it's not a northern coalition per se, but there is a Nigerian political consultative forum, which is broken down into the northern and the southern political forums. So the northern political consultative forum, which comprises of the 19 northern states, yes, I'm part of it. I'm also part of the Nigerian political consultative forum, which is the umbrella body of the coalition.
Are you part of that movement itself with certain...
Of course, I'm an active member.
Wonderful. Let's, the North, people have said that the North should wait until 2031, that it is not our turn, that we should rest until then. What do you have to say to that?
Well, naturally, I'm somebody who believes in justice and equity. But where we are in Nigeria is a situation where politically we've never bargained for it. I didn't think I was going to find myself in a situation where politically the leadership will be devoid of empathy to the extent that citizens will be dying of hunger and poverty. They are being kidnapped into the forest as merchandise, where terrorists demand for ransom. I never believed that families will sell their farmlands to pay ransom. I cannot imagine in my life. It's unheard of that a young lady will be raped in the presence of her parents, and a man will stand helplessly to watch his wife raped by terrorists. So the summary of all these things distorted the equity of the situation. So Nigeria can be described like a country that is on fire. And
currently.
Once there is fire disaster, every rational effort is mobilized towards extinguishing the fire. There is going to be no choice of liquid, whether it's coming from your enemy or from a friend. Everybody who has anything to produce that will help stem the tide and extinguish the fire will be admitted. So this is where we are. So as to whether there is this sense of entitlement, there is the equity of power sharing or rotation, it's inconsequential now.
Do you think the current administration is actually doing their possible best to try to extinguish the fire itself? That's
This administration
clearly engulfing us.
Yeah, this administration from day one did not pretend that it is out. It declared war from day one on the Nigerian people
With the subsidy removal?
by its ignoble economic policies. The subsidy withdrawal, which some intellectuals have argued to have a lot of problems with their line of thought, is that as at the time President Tinubu announced the policy, there was in law no government. There was only a president and a vice president. There were even no advisors. There were no political aides appointed.
It was just those two standing.
Just two human beings standing who had just sipped a cup of power.
And they didn't want to let
Yes,
it go?
and then they became intoxicated and said, "Oh, subsidy is withdrawn." And such a profound statement has caused implication on the lives of Nigerians. On that day, after that statement, I drove to the filling station and things have changed within less than 30 minutes.
Of that statement?
Of that statement. And such a person did not even avert his mind to the consequences of such an unguided and reckless statement coming from an exalted office of a president over a country of over 220 million people. So this government has not pretended that it has a battle with the poor people of Nigeria. All the policies, whether the withdrawal of fuel subsidy, come and look at the issue of increase in electricity tariff. Petroleum is one of the benefits of governance to the common people. Also with electricity, the common people rely on electricity for their small businesses. Now they cannot even afford to
pay for
to pay for bills. To pay for bills.
How do we get to the bottom of that? It's been said that they expected to produce a certain megawatts of electricity per this administration, but we're 2 years down the line and there's been nothing. Would you call this administration a failure?
No, there was somebody during the Nazi regime of Adolf Hitler called Goebbels. Goebbels was one of the best propagandists of his time. But this government had outshined Goebbels in terms of propaganda.
I see.
If this government tells you, "Oh, we are going to deal with this problem," but if they say, "Okay, we're going to deal with food insecurity," begin to stockpile food in your house, because what they are saying in the opposite is that you may not be able to approach the market anymore. So I've studied this government within 2 years to understand their body language. You see,
and what is that for the viewers here that are also watching? What's the pattern that this government is showing?
No, this government is, to be very modest, it's a very reckless government, because it doesn't care about what is happening to anybody. All that they are interested is that anybody who is already appointed, elected, they represent Nigeria. So everything they do is for the promotion of the welfare and well-being of that minority that are privileged to hold government appointments. That's all their interest. There is nothing in what they have done in 2 years that has a replicate effect on the life of the common people. We have been agitating that, look, there is nowhere in the entire world where subsidy of one thing or the other is not obtainable. For example, in Germany, they have excess electricity. And so there is subsidy. Sometimes citizens are given even free electricity. That is subsidy to
Do you think Nigeria would ever reach such a point where we would be able to have that luxury of free electricity and people actually living in peace?
Yeah, there are quite very great Nigerians among your generation. Because those who built this country, which we are enjoying now that we have messed it, were young people. They were not elders.
They were not old.
Yes, they were not people. In fact, in my life, I only started seeing all leaders who are sleeping on their seats in just some few years. I have never seen an old leader. Throughout my life, Sadona was not an old person. Gawan was 32. J.D. Gomo, who was the governor of Benin Plateau, was 29. Metama Yusuf became a minister at 27. Buhari, Joseph Gerba was a general at 36. Babangida, they were all 40, less than 40. So I've never seen a generation of grandparents.
70-year-olds.
Yes. I only started seeing this generation of grandparents who are entitled to power in this democratic experiment, which has been so terrible. So I believe that your generation has so many young people that are patriots, they are nationalists, they love this country. They have ideas. The only thing they lack is the requisite experience. And that is why I'm praying to God that God should allow those of my generation who love this country to try to mentor you guys to come up and let's hand over this country and serve as advisors so that we can guide you to build this country. When Sadona became Premier of Northern Nigeria, there were elders. He was not an elder. And it was these elders that said, look, you represent the future. They put them forward into political leadership and they gave them the backing. Now, what we are having is a reversal of that political heritage. We now have a generation of grandparents who, in fact, when they were young, they were leaders. In their middle ages, they were leaders. Now, as they are graduating to their graves,
they are still leaders.
They are still leaders, and they do not have intention to mentor anybody. Rather, they're now picking their biological children and traveling with it as handbags so as to inherit them. So there is hope for this country in your generation. I believe, because I've listened to young people. I was a minister of youth, and when youth come, brilliant ideas. The only thing they lack is the experience of public life, of administration.
I agree with you completely. We'll get back into that. I want to go ahead and ask you, you recently said the coalition between Abubakar Atiku, Peter Obi, and Nasir El-Rufai and others is different because, in your words, the president has declared himself the enemy of the poor. Some say that this is just politics. Are you playing on public plane, or are you just calling out real betrayal? Are you calling the spade a spade?
Anybody who must be very fair and honest to me knows that I speak my mind. Even before God, I still have questions to ask God.
You have questions to ask God?
Yes, to ask God in heaven. Because in my Bible, I read that he said, after creating man, God said, go, multiply, and have dominion of the world. We have not had the dominion of the world. He has a quarrel with the devil in heaven. Instead of arresting the devil and keeping him in the bottomless pit, which he said, he sent the devil to come and cause confusion here. And he also put a day of judgment.
Your philosophy is quite interesting.
I say my mind the way it is. You see, the media had not taken time to understand this current coalition. It's a distinct coalition since the First Republic. It's not a coalition of political parties. It's a coalition of people who have passion for the development of Nigeria. And they are coming together despite their differences, despite their political affiliations, despite their philosophies, despite their principles. They agreed on one thing, that this country needs to be rescued. So it's a different coalition. But, the media is painting a picture of a political coalition and they are attaching political parties. That is where they miss the point. So that's what I meant by saying it is distinguishable. So the major actors are there as individuals. They are not representative of any political association. They are there as individuals.
They're coming together for the betterment of Nigeria.
They are coming together because the president had declared war against the poor. The poor now are very, very hungry and they are hyper angry. So those who studied philosophy and revolutions understand the consequences of weaponizing poverty, hunger, and hardship on a predominant population
such as Nigeria.
Because what the coalition is trying to avoid is to assure the poor that, it is not a hopeless situation. We can still remedy the situation by using the power of the ballot to change the system so that we do not get to a stage where hunger will now ignite the flame of bitterness and confusion, and it will be impossible for anybody to own any property. Before I came to the studio, one of my aides called me from my village to tell me that yesterday, this is a village situation, yesterday, 2 people carrying AK-47 attacked him, brought him down on the ground, and all that they were interested to snatch was his phone. And when he was trying to struggle with them, one of them directed that he should be shot. So he released the phone to them and they left with it. And then he broke into tears because he has never seen such a thing. In a village situation, they were not going for a motorcycle. They were not going for a bicycle. They were going for a phone. So that is how bad the situation is. Very soon, if the coalition do not tame the situation quicker, this poverty will get to a stage that you may not be able to sell anything because hungry people cannot understand why you are living and you have something to sell while they will watch death visiting them through hunger. So they will just come over what you have so that they can survive because survival is an instinct.
The critics have said that you are only being critical of this administration because you are not in it. Is this about principle, as I said earlier, calling the spade a spade, or are you just positioning properly for 2027?
There is only one person in Nigeria that knows me very well. That is President Muhammad Buhari. Before President Muhammad Buhari invited me to join him about 20 years ago, he told me one thing. He said, Solomon, I know you very well. You don't spare anybody. I want you to come and join me so that we can continue with the struggle for a better society. But let's covenant today that even if myself I'm wrong, you will not spare me. So that's the only person who understands me. And that is my covenant with Buhari. So people sometimes say, why do you criticize Buhari who appointed a minister? They do not know that we have a covenant that Buhari himself covenanted with me that I should not spare him once or whenever he's wrong. And I didn't spare him, even as a president of Nigeria.
You would scrutinize when
Yes, I go to him to tell him, Mr. President, is this what we agreed with? Is this what we promised Nigerians? And he will listen to me.
This brings me to a question. Do you think the current president, has anybody that's like that actually tells him the truth?
No. He doesn't have it, and he will not have it. And anybody who dare to be like that will be kicked out even before he's appointed.
Wow.
Because, the president is not a pretender. He is the chief priest of Emiloko.
What does that mean?
Yes, Emiloko is a political philosophy of entitlement, that it is my turn. So President Tinubu sees himself as entitled to be a president of Nigeria. Nobody should ask him questions.
I see.
And he will never appoint anybody who will tell him the truth. You see, Nigerians have been quite unfair to Buhari. Yes, Buhari's government did not discharge its campaign promises. I have said this so many times. But President Muhammad Buhari is somebody who can sit down and listen. Look, you can criticize him and he will listen to you.
He will take it as constructive criticism.
He will listen to you. He will only disagree with you when you say what is not right. That is President Buhari for you. And as a president, I go to his office, he will be on his seat as a president, and I will tell him, Mr. President, this has happened in our government. It shouldn't be in our government. And he will agree with me and ask me also, what do we do? I will suggest to him what we should do. But you cannot try that with the Imiloko chief priest. You don't. So that is why you see what is happening. For the Imiloko chief priest, everybody must worship him. That's why you see everybody who is approaching Abuja, that is an APC member, he must look for a cab with that Tinubu design.
Infinity
yes, design on it.
I see.
Even the Senate president had forgotten that he's a Senate president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So he's a Senate president of Imiloko chief priest.
Not of Nigeria.
No. The Senate is not even the Senate of Nigeria. That is why once they see the president coming, they will start singing.
I was going to just say that there's an interview of yours that I had watched previously where you had called them out for just being like a flock of birds constantly singing. You criticized the president's string of endorsements, calling them an assembly of people looking to have their sins forgiven. What exactly did you mean by this statement?
No, I am always referred to as a critic. But sometimes when I help Nigerians interpret certain prophecies, it will still come back to me. I don't know whether because I wear khaki and red beret, I don't know. But the truth is that former governor of Edo State, former comrade Shomale, was the one who said that the APC is a conclave of sinners. Once you have looted so much of Nigerian money anywhere you are, and you jump into APC, your sins are forgiven. It was Oshomole who said this. It's not me. So all I am trying to help Nigerians understand is that this gale of defection is the movement of sinners into their conclave. Because the political priest who is administering forgiveness, who is the Imiloko chief priest, Shemole is just like the John the Baptist who is announcing. So he announced to everybody who is a sinner, a political sinner who has looted Nigeria dry. Please, if you don't want EFCC to arrest you, join the APC. And all of them who have joined APC.
Is this why APC has so many decampees, people jumping from one party to
that
another?
Is the reason. That's the reason. Jump into APC, your sins are forgiven. Even the Senate president, when I was a minister in 2015, Ibrahim Magu, the then EFCC chairman, went to presidential lodge in Uyo and recovered boxes of dollars. It was on television. Akpabio was arrested by EFCC. Then he was a minority leader in PDP. Immediately he joined APC. He joined the conclave. His sins were forgiven. And he has been rewarded as a Senate president, even when he did not contest election. Because the Electoral Act provides that you cannot contest two primaries at a time. He contested presidential election. So he did not participate in the primaries of the Senate. But he's a senator and he's a Senate president. So, the abracadabra we're seeing now.
There's magic happening in this administration.
Oh my God. You see, the more you see, the less you understand. You understand.
I see. Thank you for that insight. We will be back shortly after this break.
Take a seat on the Political Advantage platform for real conversations about Nigeria by Nigerians. Follow our live stream across these channels and learn how it all affects you. Every Sunday, you have a chance to stay ahead by staying engaged and informed. Tune in to the Political Advantage platform to share in real conversations that matter to you.
Welcome back to the PAP Show. If you are just tuning in, we are here with Honorable Solomon Dalung. As we get back into this, you recently warned that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a life president, which is a very strong accusation to making a constitutional democracy. Could you elaborate more on that?
Well, after a careful analysis and a review of political developments, and I align it with history and other political histories of other African countries, I came to a conclusion. So I was just being prophetic that looking at what is happening in Nigeria now, the gale of defections, and then the infamous ceremonies, political ceremonies of adoption of sole candidature of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, they cracked down on voices of dissent right in the National Assembly, where every other voice that attempted to express dissent had been cracked down, suspended, and then they cracked down on the democratic rights of Nigerians to protest, where we organized a peaceful protest of end bad governance, and the state mobilized security, both soldiers and police. They went down and shot and killed innocent Nigerians carrying placards. And the National Security Advisor came on air on the national television to inform Nigerians that the protest was sponsored by enemy foreign countries. And that
the peaceful protest.
Yes, and that they had in custody terrorists who were sponsored. So he went to the National Council of State, a gathering of elder statesmen, to make this same presentation to them, and misled former president, former chief justices, former senate presidents of Nigeria that the protest was sponsored by a foreign country and that they had terrorists in custody. But
do you believe there's any truth?
But those of us who organized the protest knew that this government was lying. So we waited for when they will arrange the terrorists. They starved these children, teenagers, with hunger for 3 months. So when they ultimately brought them to court, some of them couldn't stand because of hunger. They were collapsing in court. And all of them were teenagers from the ages of 15 down.
We remember how brutal.
Yes, and then these were the terrorists of this Emiloko chief priest government. So the terrorists. The judge could not stand the scene. She had to run into her chambers because it became a movie. So at the end of the day, the government was embarrassed nationally, traditionally, internationally, culturally, spiritually, and morally. And they had to discontinue the cases and even paid some meager amount as compensation to these children. So a government with this type of pedigree now has invented the concept of sole candidature. And the last we had of sole candidature in Nigeria was during Abacha's time, where 5 political parties all endorsed him as a sole candidate. But that did not materialize.
Do you think history is repeating itself?
No, history has repeated itself, except that maybe the consequences of history is what we are yet to see.
This current history
yes,
being made.
yeah, of course. This is the same thing Abacha did. And now everybody is decamping into APC. The last person that will decamp to APC is Professor Mahmoud with INEC. They're going to decamp to APC.
You foresee it happening?
Professor Mahmoud is going to decamp to APC. Churches, mosques will decamp to APC. Maybe some of us who will not decamp may have to run into exile and go to Nigeria because we are not going to go to decamp. So this is what is happening, because when the storm of this sole candidature are gathered, anybody who is not the APC, the difference between him and Bello Turji might be very thin because he's a criminal.
Speaking of Bello Turji and insecurity, particularly in the Middle Belt, in Benue and Plateau, your home state, the numbers are no longer just statistics. There are mass graves, IDP camps, and shattered villages. Why did leaders like you in the past fail to raise alarm when you had the chance to under Buhari, for instance, at that time?
No. While I was a minister, that was when banditry started in Zamfara. Because when we took over, it was only the Northeast that was characterized by the Boko Haram insurgency, which President Muhammad Buhari in less than 6 months
was able
yes,
to...
there were 26 local governments under the control of Boko Haram, and with less than 6 months, Buhari was able to recover all the local governments back to the map of Nigeria. So when banditry started, in the Federal Executive Council, I told the president, I said, Mr. President, you are a retired general. In this cabinet, we have 3 or 4 other generals. Those of us who are bloody civilians cannot sit here and imagine that people with this type of credentials are in this government, and some ragtag criminals will take over our forests and begin to harass and prevent our people from farming. You must take the battle to the doorstep of these criminals. And President Muhammad Buhari, General Nambazo, General Brute, General Ali, who was the Minister of Defense, all of them dressed in military uniform, took the battle to the bandits in Zamfara forest. And the situation came under control because the battle was taken there.
Do you think there was lack of continuity?
Yes. But subsequently, when we left government in 2019, because as of 2019, the security in Zamfara was better. I campaigned in 2019 by road. I slept in Bukuyum in Zamfara as a minister.
Wow.
While campaigning. But shortly when we left government in 2019, the security situation started deteriorating and got to where we are. So when I'm being asked, oh, why didn't you say this while you are in government? Of course, while you are in government, you have the opportunity to talk directly to the leader who can act. So if you do not talk, whatever you are saying outside will not make meaning. But as it is now, that I cannot see Tinubu, because even if I want to see Tinubu as a citizen now, I must have to decamp to APC before I will see Tinubu. There is nobody he has called there that have gone there to decamp or have changed party. While in the real sense, a president is supposed to receive every citizen, and even senior citizens who will have opinion to offer. So, while we had the opportunity, we did this. While I was a minister still, Plateau was boiling. They were killing people everywhere. So I told the president, look, my home state is on fire. The president booked for a state visit to Plateau. I said, you must go to Plateau. He went to Plateau. He gathered everybody in a town hall. And then the then governor, Governor Dalung, appointed 5 people to speak. 1 for the youth, 1 for the elders, 1 for women, 1 for the Muslim, and 1 for the Christians. All of them told the president that I was lying, that peace on the plateau was equivalent to heaven. So the president left.
What do you think was behind that move?
I'm coming, my dear. When the elder who spoke last, while he was lying that Plateau was peaceful, his village was attacked and his house was burned down. That same time he was lying. So the president returned with a wrong impression that all was well on the Plateau. Then shortly thereafter, carnage resumed. So I went to Jos, and the then president of Kokin, the predominant church in Plateau, faced me in the church and told me, look, you and your boss Buhari have conspired so that they will be killing Plateau people. You are arming Fulani people to kill Plateau people. So I asked him, I said, sir, can you repeat this thing if I take it to Buhari? And he said, yes. I said, because the president came here, he was told that Plateau was as peaceful as heaven. So this one you are saying is a different thing. Then he agreed. So I told him, okay. I went to the president and booked an appointment for him. And I brought the church of a delegation of 45 people. They came to the president. And that great man repeated what he told me in the church. The president said, we Christians in Plateau are suspecting you, President Buhari, as if you conspire with the Fulani people to kill our people. And he proceeded to give the president statistics of villages that had been located, the IDP camp. When he finished, the president said, oh, thank you very much. This is the first time I am hearing this, but I will definitely take steps. And the president said this. The governor who presided over that ignoble town hall meeting that lied that there was peace was also there. So what I am driving at is that some of us, if we have the opportunity, we will tell everybody our mind. Whether he takes it, whether he likes our faces or not, we will do it. I have been an activist at the age of 10, not now. There is no system that I belong to that you go and investigate and you will not see records of defiance.
A rebellious nature.
That is me. Even in heaven, I'm going to rebel against why God would have to sit in judgment. Yes, sit in judgment when he didn't arrest the devil to take him to where and brought him here.
While we bring things back to earth and back to Nigeria, there's a growing online campaign calling for a state of emergency in Benue State. Do you agree? And is that just a temporary fix for a deep-rooted issue?
No, the state of emergency is long overdue in Benue, but it's not the illegal state of emergency that...
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, we are not practicing democracy now. Do you know that? We are practicing what is called Daeki. Daeki is a system of government mixed between military or martial and democracy, or civilian and people in uniform. So we are now practicing Daeki in Nigeria, not democracy. Because we have a president that is purported to have been elected. We have a military man ruling in some part of Nigeria. So what does our constitution provide for state of emergency? State of emergency, a governor on his own can declare a state of emergency. And the president will roll out troops to help restore normalcy. So what the constitution contemplates by a state of emergency is that where the conditions stipulated in section 1 to 5 of section 1 to 5 of section 305 of the Constitution. Once those conditions are fulfilled, a state of emergency can be declared. And in Benue, it's long overdue. But if you are calling for this illegal state of emergency where a governor is removed, the House of Assembly is removed, the Constitution does not recognize that. There's nowhere in our Constitution. The courts had in about Supreme Court in 5 judgments emphasized the law that a state of emergency does not include dismantling political leadership. But you can see this government, like I said,
it's trying to do that.
Yes, it has done that in reverse. So if you call for state of emergency in Benue now, you will be arming President Tinubu with another illegal weapon to remove the governor and look for one of his business friends.
To put him
Yes,
there.
he might even appoint Chagori, the MD of High Tech, as a sole administrator in Benue. So in this line, we will not be supporting state of emergency in Benue.
So what's the real solution to the violence and displacement?
The solution is that the president should develop a political will and deal with the situation. Let me tell you, see, Nigerians forget things easily. When President Obasanjo was president of Nigeria, the Nigerian Taliban, which is now Boko Haram, they were in Yobe Mountains. They descended and annexed 2 local governments in Yobe. Obasanjo gave the military 72 hours to flush them out and reclaim the local government. And the military, within 72 hours, flushed them out and took over the local government. In 2009, President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, may God admit him into Al-Jannah Fidelsi and even makes him a saint, an angel. Yar'Adua was on his way to Japan when Boko Haram attacked 5 police stations in Maiduguri. He was by his aircraft, the staircase, and he gave a marching order to the military. Before I return, you would have brought that situation under control. The military went there and brought the situation under control in less than 48 hours. So let me go back and explain this thing with what Abacha said. Abacha said, if insurgency persists for more than 48 hours,
the government has
the prime suspect is the government. And I believe with this philosophy of Abacha, that the problem of killings in Benue, in Plateau, in Zamfara, in the Northeast, in North Central, has persisted because the prime suspect is the government. Because criminality now is, we have what we call now in Nigeria, criminal industrial complex. So this criminal industrial complex is reflected by kidnapping, banditry, insurgency, whether you call it unknown gunmen or non-gunmen, you call it harder farmers clashes. Now, this is a huge criminal enterprise, and there are stakeholders. These stakeholders are those who benefit from the security vote that is meant for security. They are stakeholders. The second set of stakeholders are those who buy and provide, or who are interested in the contract of relief materials to people that are displaced. They are stakeholders. The third stakeholders are those who supply arms to the criminals. So once there is conflict, their business flourish. So these 3 stakeholders are the ones holding this criminal industrial complex in Nigeria flourishing. And because there is no political will, just like Obasanjo did, just like Yar'Adua did, then all that you have happening is once Nigerians are killed, 200 people are killed, the president will visit, he will go and make statement there, enough is enough, direct the military to go and do this. The chief of army staff or chief of defense staff will go there and say, oh, we've gone round, we've seen all what is happening, we want to assure Nigerians we're going to deal with the situation. And as they're making this statement, the criminals are emboldened. Immediately they leave, you will hear another strike and they will kill the people. So
that is quite atrocious.
The truth about what is happening in Nigeria is what we can refer as the politicization of security.
I can imagine. We have a little feedback segment where we get questions from our audience that they would now come back in and ask you. I have two questions here. The first one is, what's the legacy that you left behind as a minister for youth and sports that you would want to share with us? A legacy that you left behind, just in a few short words, because we are short of time.
Well, when I became minister in 2015, the ministry was in chaos. All the youth organizations, from the National Youth Council, the Boy Scout, they were in crisis of leadership because the politicians infiltrated it, so they had multiple leadership. Before I left in 2015, I resolved all the crises. In fact, the Boy Scout of Nigeria were even expelled from the international organization for a period of over 10 years. And
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I intervened, negotiated, and reconciled them and brought them back.
That is wonderful.
And we also give young people vocational and skills training. And within a period of 3 years, the ministry was able to train over 1,500. We give them seed money to take off, like about minimum of 200,000. And then we were also able, in partnership with ECOWAS, train over 50 young people outside the country in a different vocation. So that we were able to achieve. And because when I was a minister, the budget of youth development was taken to the office of the vice president, which was used for Empower, market money, and all those things. So the little that we had being considered to us was what we used to achieve this for youth development. While in sports, I left a tall legacy that has not been beaten by anybody up till now. When I became a minister, Nigeria did not qualify for WAFU, West African Football Union. Nigeria did not qualify for AFCON. Nigeria did not qualify for CHAN. Nigeria did not qualify for World Cup. Nigeria went to Olympics and returned with no medal. I returned Nigeria to the medal table in 2016 in Rio. I qualified Nigeria for WAFU. We came back with a medal. I qualified Nigeria for CHAN. We went and came back with a silver medal. I qualified Nigeria for AFCON. We went there and came back with a silver medal. And I qualified Nigeria for World Cup without a presidential task force. Because before Nigeria qualified for World Cup, there is usually a multi-billion task force that a minimum of 10 billion is voted to qualify Nigeria. But as an individual, I qualified Nigeria with a match to spare, meaning that we qualified before even playing our last match. And Nigeria went to Russia. But since I left office, all this progress recorded had gone down. Nigeria has never been to the World Cup since I left. And they are not sure of going in this current campaign. When I left office, I met Nigeria as African champions in 2 sports.
Football and which one?
No, women football and wrestling. But when I left in 2019, Nigeria was champion in 10 sports. Today, I don't know whether they are back to 2 or whatever is the development. So,
speaking of this administration, sorry to cut you short, if you had the listening ears of the president tonight, what would you say as our final question?
If I have the listening ear of the president, I will just discharge my responsibility as a citizen because it's not going to change anything. The Imiloko chief priest will not listen, but I will tell him that, look, without revisiting fuel subsidy, electricity subsidy, and insecurity. If you do not take any concrete steps to deal with this major crisis, the country is navigating into chaos. And we have been praying to God so that we don't become Sudan. I saw Sudan last 3 years. It was a peaceful country. And because of the recklessness of political leadership, it has been plunged into war. The president should not drive the poor and their anger into anarchy.
That is where we leave it for tonight. A great thank you to Honorable Solomon Dalung for joining us on the PAP Show. Remember, this is where we tell your story as Nigerians, not as a matter of speculation, but as our reality. Stay tuned, and until next time, I'm Hadiza Manufashi. Welcome again to the PAP Show.